Welcome back to the Untamed Social Podcast. And welcome to our guest today, Tara Kay, her first time on the podcast. How excited are you?
Hey guys, so very excited about this.
So Tara Kay is, I'm trying to think, maybe not our newest social media manager, but you're new-ish to the team. What's it been, like 4 months?
It's been like 5, maybe almost 6.
Okay, I was close.
Yeah. Right?
So,
I'm fine.
We're really excited because today we're talking about something, actually there's a lot to talk about. There's been so much going on with social media the past couple of weeks with the TikTok ban, and now Instagram's coming out with all of these new features at a time that they feel like is an advantage for them, obviously. But we're going to talk about our preferred platforms, what social media we like to be on to consume content, create content, all of that. And the reason why I think this is important for brands is because a lot of times brands just think, oh, I need to be everywhere. But the truth of the matter is that you got to go where your audience is, and you have to understand why your audience likes that platform, and also if you enjoy consuming content on that platform. So, TK, if you had to choose, what would be your number one social media platform?
Instagram. I feel like I'm a little bit in the minority here. I feel like everyone's kind of like hopped on TikTok since it came out, really. But I've always been an Instagram girl. Like, I feel like I'm probably a little bit more old school and old fashioned a little bit. So like, I still like Facebook. I'm one of like the few, but
the few.
The few. I mean, like, all of us still have it, but like, I like it still.
I mean, you're right. I do have it, but like, I try my best not to go on there.
I know. It's funny. I took a really long time to get onto TikTok because I was kind of like, no, I already have everything that I need here in Instagram. Like, you have the For You page, which is basically the same thing as TikTok. And you have like, I mean, it feels like TikTok. I know there's some things that are annoying about it, like the fact that it's not consistent across the board. Like when new features come out, it's not the easiest to work with. Mm-hmm. But I think that as far as like time efficiency and user retention, like Instagram wins out because TikTok, it has short, addictive content, which is great if that's what you're looking for, but it can also lead to unproductive time on the app. So, because Instagram has like a variety of formats, like there's stories, reels, static posts, the For You page, everything. It has more intentional engagement, and I also think it encourages authenticity more than TikTok.
What?
I know. Hot take.
That's a different perspective.
I know. Well, okay, so hear me out. Like with TikTok, it's all about virality, like, and trends, and everyone's, you've got like the reactions on there. You've got all sorts of videos that are like authentic because they're raw and they're just like filming people doing their thing in the daily life, whatever. But I think it's a lot more focused on trends and going viral than it is on actually being authentic to yourself. Mm-hmm. So,
I mean, you're not wrong. You're not wrong. I wouldn't say I 100% agree, but there's definitely a difference with TikTok and Instagram, which, I mean, if you can't already tell, I'm a TikTok girl. And I used to be that Instagram girl. Like, I was ride or die. And I changed, which we'll talk about later. But I think that TikTok it's a lot easier to go viral over there. It's a lot easier to get reach on TikTok. Instagram is the place, like if you're a brand, where you're going to use it for conversions more than TikTok. I definitely agree with that. But I think that TikTok has changed a lot, especially over the past year with not just, I mean, I think it has this perception of it being trendy and like everything's a trend, which there is that side of TikTok, but that's not the side of TikTok that I'm on. I actually use TikTok a lot for like news and like pop culture updates and things like that. But I also do it for like how-tos. I use it like in place of YouTube. So if there's something that I want to learn, I'll go to TikTok and search for videos there. Depending on what it is. Most of the time I'm
Yeah.
going to YouTube, depending on what it is. But a lot of times, like, I really like to play Animal Crossing. Don't judge me. Okay? I get on my Nintendo Switch.
I love that.
And it's like my mom time. And then I look at TikTok for like how do people build certain things, and it helps me. So for me, I'm like, that's productive.
Right? No, I think TikTok definitely has a place. And like, I'm not saying that like just because I love Instagram and I think that it is superior means just kidding, sort of. But like, I do think that they both serve different purposes. So as like a brand, it's definitely worth being on both, depending on the type of content that you have and depending on your brand itself. I mean, it may be that like TikTok just doesn't work for somebody or the Instagram just doesn't work for someone. But I think those are usually the two that like they may not be like you may not have as much of a following on one or the other, but those are the two that you probably should have.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah, I do agree with that. So, so you mentioned about how Instagram does have like a lot of features, which is so true, which is a huge turnoff for me personally as a creator. Mm-hmm. If I'm going on into a platform and I'm having to post content, I just feel like Instagram is so much work in order to, number one, get reach, which I already said. I think TikTok, it's so much easier to get reach. But they've simplified it, whereas Instagram, I feel like, keeps making things more difficult. Like, they want you to do everything. Yeah. They want you to do stories. They want you to do lives, carousels, reels. Like, it's exhausting, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely think that there's a lot more, because there are so many more options, it requires more work because of that. But I also think that you can, like, out of all of those different features, figure out what works best for your audience. So I feel like it just kind of depends. If you're okay with just going for one type of content using TikTok, then there's that option. But what if your users, like the people who are really going to use your brand, who are really going to come to you, are the ones who check out their stories every single day?
Right.
You know, I think that there's more work that goes into it, but could potentially pay off more than TikTok could. Just because, like, I mean, you could be on TikTok and have a video go viral once, and no one knows your account still. You know,
that is very true. That is so true.
Yeah, like
yeah,
yeah.
And I think that a lot of brands they look for that virality, but that's with any platform. And there's that huge misconception that like all I need is for one video to blow up, and then my brand will be so successful. I'll sell all the products or all my services, and that's just not the case on any platform. But I think, and it's funny because when I look back and when I was that Instagram girl, like before I started working with Strella, that's how I got my start, was Instagram. And because I saw success over there, then TikTok came about, and everybody else was like, this is just for dancing. Like nobody saw the potential that you could have to run a business on it. And I was like, well, I'm not going to count it out. So I tried it and it worked. And so then I saw how much easier it was to create content over there. And I had to work really hard to convince people from Instagram to come over to TikTok to follow me over there, because I just preferred to be on that platform. So there for a while I was, managing both. And then I started to see Instagram is just taking so much energy out of me. I can't do it anymore.
No, that's definitely fair.
Yeah.
Especially from a creator's point of view.
Yeah.
It is hard to keep up with Instagram. But for a consumer's point of view, well, I don't know. I could see it going both ways. I think that you also just have more ability for storytelling because you have all of the different features. So you have like the nuances there.
Like different options of like how to actually, like some people I think about like Rachel. Rachel prefers to like read blogs. I hate reading. I'd rather listen to a podcast. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like you have some people who might prefer to read through an entire carousel, and some who might prefer to watch a video of you just like giving the information. So I will give that to Instagram, that they appeal to both sides of it. But I do have a question. So this past week, Instagram came out and said that they're going to increase Reels to up to 3 minutes. What are your thoughts on that? Would you, as an Instagram user, would you watch a 3-minute Reel?
I think depending on what kind of information I'm looking for, yes. Because with some things, like, I mean, I look up a lot about cooking. I don't cook a lot, but I like to watch cooking videos.
Yeah.
And like, one day I will start cooking.
Like, you got a homestead and you're doing your thing. I got you.
Right. So, like, cooking videos, I love watching them, but I'm always like, oh my gosh, I gotta pause it. Hold on. They're going way too fast.
Yeah.
And I think that would be one thing where, like, if you have a cooking Instagram, whatever, then that's great, because then you can go into more depth on things and talk about, like, I don't know, why bread rises when you add this, things like that.
Right.
3 minutes still isn't like a ton of time to do that. But I know that like long form content in general is becoming a lot more popular. Mm-hmm. So I still kind of have some mixed feelings about it, because generally if I'm watching videos and it's too long, I'm like, just scroll to the next one. But I'm starting to like see more of the need for long form. So I feel like it's just kind of a transition that I'm going to go through over the next few weeks and months with that.
Well, I think you're right too, because I remember when TikTok did that, and at first I didn't really think anything of it. Like when they first said, okay, 3 minutes, I was like, oh, whatever, it's 3 minutes. But then when they kept increasing it, and it was like 10 minutes, and then it's 30 minutes, like you're like keeps going up. And you're thinking, like, I'll never watch a 10-minute long TikTok video. That's crazy. And now I find myself sitting for 10 minutes watching an entire video on TikTok.
Right.
So I just feel, but I do feel like, like Instagram should have done this so long ago. I don't know what took them so long to get here. I mean, everybody else that does short form video content has met the goal of 3 minutes or more. And it's like, Instagram, where have you been? Like, you should have done this so much earlier.
I know. There's some things like, also with how, over this last week, how they changed everything from the squares in the profile feed grid view to rectangles. I'm also like, why did it take so long? Because I don't think anyone really likes looking at, like, I think it looks so much better with the rectangles now than the squares.
Yeah.
It's much more aesthetically pleasing. Like, that's what Instagram is all about.
You know what, though? That's actually opposite of what I've heard from a lot of Instagram users, is that they prefer the square grid. That they're like, it's the traditional Instagram. Why would we go to rectangle?
I'm just apparently all about these hot takes right now. So
you really are. You're blowing my mind today.
I know. I mean, I could see, like, if you've curated your feed, like, to look an exact way, and then now that they've switched it, that
exhausting. Another thing that Instagram has done to cause you to do more work.
But be loyal.
You do have that going for you, TK.
Right.
So, okay, so, I mean, you don't have to say how old you are, but I'll say how old I am. I'm 36. And so...
I'm 30. Okay. We'll go ahead and tell everyone.
So I know that, like, we're not exactly, like, super close in age, but probably out of everybody on the team, like, you and I are the closest in age. We've either got Gen Zers or we've got people in their 40s. Right. And so for us, I feel like, okay, like, this is a really good match, because a lot of times people think, well, it's generational. So typically it's older millennials and Gen X, is that Gen X. That's Gen on X, Instagram. Yeah. And it's Gen Z and younger millennials on TikTok. and we're so different.
Reverse. I mean, we're both millennials, but like...
Right.
Yeah.
So I find that interesting, but also important for brands to know, because I do think there are a lot of misconceptions. Like, my grandmother, she's 75. I hope she doesn't watch this because she's going to be like, I ain't 75. But my grandmother is religiously on TikTok. She buys off of TikTok Shop all the time. She
so funny.
loves TikTok so much. And so I just feel like there is that misconception with TikTok that it is just young people shaking it on TikTok.
Yeah.
And that's really not the case anymore, I feel like.
Yeah, I think it used to be that it was more divided, but as time has gone on and as like Gen Zers are now getting older, and I don't even know what came after them. I know there's something like it's some
Boomers. Oh, Alpha.
no.
After Gen Z, Alpha.
Yeah, right. And I'm like, I don't even know what they're gonna be doing soon.
God
But I
knows.
kind of feel like it's all just like this generational mess now that I don't think that there's I mean there definitely still is like it's skewed more toward TikTok is a little bit of a younger audience, I think usually, but like obviously your grandma's proving me wrong, so
Right. Go get it, Grandma.
right? Like I want to meet your grandma.
She's something else. But I think, like, overall, like, the point of this discussion, again, just being that obviously as social media experts and to help brands succeed on social media, we're never going to say choose one over the other. I mean, that would be crazy of us. But I do think...
You're right. I agree.
I do think, though, that it is important to decide, okay, which one are you going to invest more energy into? Because if you look at Instagram and you look at TikTok, let's say that you're making video content. The video content that you make, it needs to work with that platform. So talking head videos do really well on TikTok. They don't do as well on Instagram. And so for me, I think, okay, well, if I'm trying to save time but still be active and present on both platforms, I have to decide which one I'm going to put my energy into. Is it going to be a talking head video that's going to perform well on TikTok that I just repurpose over onto Instagram, or the opposite? So I think that brands really need to understand, if you're limited on time, which is the number one thing that people come to us for, is because they're like, I don't have time, I can't stay consistent. Then you really have to understand which one you prefer and what your target audience prefers, because
100%.
TK doesn't like to, buy products off of TikTok.
I know, right? I'm like, no, that is so important, because it's really easy, I think, to get burned out making social media content, and just like going all in on both would be exhausting. Like you would not have time to run your business if you are only focusing on creating content.
Yeah.
And I think, like, I mean, we've had some clients that like they have asked us to be on a certain platform or to manage their account on a certain platform that just doesn't do as well, and it's just not worth keeping it on that platform. So
X.
Yes, X especially, right?
We're just hating on all of them today.
I know. Poor X. I mean, kind of, but I don't know that I feel that bad for them. But it is super important. I think like part of it is kind of trial and error, figuring out like what's doing better, what gains more traction. But obviously, like, it takes a few months to figure that kind of information out. And at the same time, I think it's something to, like, really dive deep into what your brand is. Because some brands, I think, just may not fit very well. Like, their content, just anything they can come up with to post may not fit on one platform or the other. Like if you only have like super polished stuff that is meant for TV and you don't want to put that on social media, like there's just so many kinds of things like that happening, which, we've seen that before.
Yes, we have. Yes, we have. But yeah, and I think also like I was doing an interview today about like the TikTok ban and how brands can prepare and all of that. And he had asked me, are there any platforms that like brands should really keep their eye on? and maybe consider like posting more to, or if they're not posting at all. And I was like, to be honest, like the number one thing that you can do is to consume content on every platform to see what you like, because whatever you like, it's likely that your target audience is also going to like to consume that type of content. There's definitely a relationship there between the two, that correlation. So I feel like if you're somebody who prefers to consume content on Instagram, you likely will prefer to create content on Instagram rather than TikTok or X or Blue Sky, whatever you want to pick. We're not even putting Facebook in the mix.
Yeah. I'm not taking it personally.
Well, I will say I do forgive you for being an Instagram fan. We can still be friends.
I appreciate it. I mean, there's so much good there, and it's so pretty. I just love the aesthetic.
It is pretty.
I love everything about Instagram.
I do love a good grid. You know what I mean? Like looking at a grid and it's really pretty. I will give you that. I like that a lot.
There is something grounding. Like, I know this sounds weird, but there is something grounding about having like that home page, like a home profile and a home news feed. I mean, I know TikTok has that too, but it's just not the same. So
I'm going to just start texting you TikToks from now on to force you to start to like it.
I hate that. No, it's fine. TikToks are fine, okay?
Anyways, I hope that, number one, I hope that you had a good time on your first episode, TK.
I did, yeah. This was great. We should talk, we should debate more often.
We should. I don't know if they'll have us back together. If they're like,
they might not.
Don't pair Laney and TK together.
Never mind. We don't want to watch that.
But I also hope that this was helpful, at least for somebody, to understand like where their time and energy should be put, and what those differences are in the platforms that audiences like to consume. But otherwise, that's it. That's all we have for today. It was a pleasure.
Great. It was indeed.
All right.
Thanks.
We'll see you guys later.
Bye.
Bye.